All right. We'll start by going to the school finance website. To get there, you'll go to opi.mt.gov. That takes you to the main OPI website. From there, you'll go to leadership and school finance. I would recommend going through this with me and bookmarking these as we go. The first step is making sure that you have access to Mayfairs. To assure that, you'll click on this School Finance Application Resources button, scroll down where it says Application Login Links, and click the Mayfair system. This will take you to the OPI Secure portal where you can attempt to log in. If you do have a login, great. If not, you'll go back to that OPI website and click the School Finance Access form. This access form will be sent to the OPI School Finance at mt.gov email address, which is monitored by our computer support specialist, Amanda Ziggin. Amanda has been receiving quite a few of these, and so if you do have to send one, be sure to give her some grace with timing as they're coming in pretty fast. In order to add roles to a new account, make sure you click this Add Role button. And you will also need authorized representative signature, which would likely be your superintendent. Once that's all filled out, you can send it on to Amanda and she'll get you processed. This page down here does give you descriptions of what all of the roles are defined as. So if you have any questions, you can refer down here. And if those don't answer it, then feel free to reach out to us. From there, you'll go to the budget section of our website. And then budget spreadsheet and guidance is where you'll find the budget instructions. And the next tab, the budget timeline, is where you'll find the budget timeline. I recommend you open a copy of this and save it to your desktop and read through it, just so you're aware of all the upcoming deadlines. It points out that no later than August 15th, your TFS should be sent to the county superintendent, and no later than September 15th, that budget should be submitted. Under budget spreadsheets and guidance, it shows you the fiscal year 2025 budget instructions. I would recommend saving this to your desktop as well so that you have easy access to it. Section 1 outlines the brief overview and also gives you contact information for people who would be able to help you with any questions you may have. Scrolling down to section 2, it outlines everything that needs to be completed prior to completing your budget. Be sure you are reconciled with your county. That should be done before you begin the TFS, but just a special note on that. And then section 3 gives you step-by-step out along with how to fill out your budget. Lacey will go through that here in a little bit, but this is where all the steps will be completed. From there, you can go ahead and click this button down here, preliminary budget data reports, and you'll want to pull that for fiscal year 25 and have it handy. We're using Jefferson County High School, but just pulling a random one here. This is your PBDS with all of your direct state aid, quality educator, and at-risk student funding, etc. And I think that's all I have for the budget. So Lacey will go into the Mayfairs with you, and I'll go ahead and shut the camera off. And there we go.
Thank you, Olivia.
We have a question.
Oh, looks like we have a question, so we'll pause and make sure we get through those before we start. And Mayfairs.
Do we have to fill one out for each school if we are doing multiple schools? Yes.
So yes, if they're separate.
Are you talking about access forms?
Oh,
Like a Mayfair's? Oh, yes, talking about access forms. You should be able to have multiple schools in your Mayfair's account.
yeah, I believe it's tied to your school system. So Amanda, are you on? Can you speak to that so I don't say it wrong since you handle these? Sorry to put you on the spot. See if she's
I'll go talk to Amanda quick and then I'll come back and chat a response so that everyone has it.
Yeah, I am fairly certain that it goes by school system. So when you send this in, it's gonna get you into all of your different schools in the school system. but she's gonna double check, make sure we're not giving you information that's incorrect. Were there any other questions in the meantime before we move forward? Okay. Seeing none, I will move forward, and then when Olivia comes back, she can update us. So once you've done all of your preparations, your TFS is complete, and now you're ready to put your budget into Mayfair's. You're gonna go to the school finance website. And you're gonna log in to Mayfair's. Here's the link. This will be the sign-on that it will bring you to get you into the secure portal.
Yes, you need. Amanda says, yes, you do need a login form for each school district. So if you have multiple school districts, you need one for each.
Can you explain that? Like they would need one for the high school and the elementary?
No. She's on a meeting right now, so she just got it right yes to
Okay.
me.
Well, most
So-
people are only gonna probably work one district, so. There's a few of you that do have multiple school districts, I believe, so yes, in that case, they would need one for each. Okay. All right, now that kind of got jumbled up, we'll continue on. So you guys will sign in here to get into Mayfair's. I'm gonna work out of our test system. And so my screen's gonna look a little different. I'm gonna jump over to my link there, but so my background is green. That's because that's OPI's test system. So yours will not be green like this. Okay, your portal is probably only gonna have a couple different icons out here. The rest of these are OPI icons. So you'll have the financial reporting Mayfair's, and you'll probably have the OPI reporting center. You're gonna click on the financial reporting Mayfair's. And so we will start by going to data entry, and this time we're gonna go to budget, and we are gonna start with step 1. The very first thing you're gonna do is make sure you enter your taxable value in. The taxable values are usually put out by the Department of Revenue the first Monday in August. I believe that's August 5th. We expect to see those or around that time. So be keeping an eye out for that. We're working the fiscal year 25 budget. We're gonna pick on Jefferson High School, and we did get permission from Lori.
Thanks, Lori.
But the information in here is probably not anywhere close to Lori's real information, so. So once you're in the screen, you're ready to input your taxable value. Your county will show up here. You're gonna put your new value right here. This, I believe, defaults, you don't enter that, and then you're gonna hit save. Okay, first step done. Step 2 is your taxing jurisdiction. This is for debt service only. So if you don't have a debt service fund, it's usually bonds. You won't need to do anything with this screen, but taxing jurisdictions are set up by the OPI. So if you need one, you should be able to come out here and it should be available for you to select. You're going to put in your taxable value again. And then over here, if there's a fund balance, you're going to enter that fund balance for this fund balance for jurisdiction field. And most people are not a TIF district, so assuming that's not any of you, you're going to put zeros here if you are a TIF district. You might need to call and get some help with that field if you're not sure what to put there. Okay, I'm going to hit save. And now we've got that step done. So we're going to go to step 3. That's your bus depreciation, asset depreciation. I have entered in 2 buses for Jefferson High School. So these are 2 buses they purchased in fiscal year 24. Let's see. So you would go to the asset, set up assets, add a new asset. And then I entered in that they had purchased this bus in 2024, that it cost $150,000 to the district. The name of the bus, you have to put in the VIN. If it's not a bus and it's a communication system or safety device, you'll check this box. In this case, it's not, so we didn't check it. And if you have a bus that had been entered in years before and you sold it or disposed of it, this is where you would click to dispose of that. Once you click that, like next year, if you realize you clicked it and you shouldn't have, you're not going to be able to correct that yourself. You're going to have to get a hold of us at OPI and have us do some work in here for you. And so my first year that this would be entered into my budget would be in fiscal year 25. And hit save. And then we're going to return to the previous screen. Okay. So that's how you get in your new buses and communication systems and stuff. Then you go to step 4, your building reserve levy page. If you have a new levy, you would click the go to building reserve setup page, put in your new levy. So I had went in, I said, I ran my election in May. It's going to start in 2024. Levy type. This was a voted levy, so it's subfund 612. It was authorized for 4 years, and the total amount authorized was 100,000. So that's how you put in your building reserve levies. Let's see. So once your levies are showing up on your building reserve levy page and you hit select, you'll see down here that it says maximum levy amount is 25,000. So that is telling you that that is the most you can levy in any year. And so your board has a choice here. You can choose to levy the full amount to your taxpayers, or you could levy less, but that is the maximum amount. Most of the time you're going to see a maximum amount levied here. So you want to make sure to enter that in on this screen so it shows up in your budget later. Okay, got our building reserve levies in. Any questions, Olivia? Really good.
Nope. Oh, do the voted safety levies work the same way?
Yes, you would just choose the sub fund that fit that. Let's see. If we were going to add in a new building reserve. Whoops. That might not be the exact date for elections this year, but. And then you would click 611 voted safety levy.
Perfect. And then the next question is, can you talk about the 613 levy for building reserve?
I'm assuming that's permissive. And so there is an amount that each district could potentially permissively levy out of the building reserve. In order to have the ability and the authorization to do that, you would have needed to do that notice the end of March. Oh, put me on the spot. The name of that notice, notice of intent to increase levies is what that notice is. And it had to be published by March 30th in order to be able to do a permissive levy for your building reserve. But if you did that, I will get into that a little bit later when we get to the budget piece of that, on some tips on how to get that set up in your budget. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, step 5 is your debt service. These are for special improvement districts. SIDS are. That does not affect very many schools. If you're not sure if you're a SIDS district, you're probably not. If you are and you have more questions on that, please reach out to us later and we will get you the answers that you need on that. Okay. Step 6 is your debt service, your bonds. So in this case, we have a bond for the high school. And when you have a bond set up, so OPI will put in your bond schedule on your behalf. So when you come in to set up your budget, your principal and interest amounts for that year should already be showing. You will need to put in your agent fees. If you're not sure what your agent fees are, or if you're not sure if they increased, you would reach out to the bank and whoever handles your bonds, and check. DA Davidson is usually who it is, and they can tell you what your agent fees are. So you can make sure to get them in here so you have it budgeted. Okay. Whoops, I jumped to the TFS. We don't want to go backwards. Then your technology election levy. If you have a tech levy, you'll need to go to this screen. You'll see here that my max levy amount is 35,000. And the reason it looks kind of goofy here is there are schools that if there are levies that had been passed prior to July 1st of 2013, and some of those are still in place, and they were what you call perpetual levies. So they can permissively levy that amount like forever, as long as they are doing the reporting on the depreciation of their technology equipment as they should. And we have more information on that, but nobody can get one of those at this point. Those are over. They're only for ones that had been in place prior to July 1st, 2013. In this case, this is one of those levies. And so Jefferson High School can permissively levy the 35,000 every year. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. Whoops. My keyboard doesn't like the 5 button.
Why is that, Lacey?
I don't eat or drink at your desk.
I was just gonna clarify one thing for the building reserve. The levy would start in fiscal year 25 if it was voted in 24. There was some confusion on that, so I just wanted to reiterate.
Thank you. I get going too fast sometimes.
No, you're good.
Okay, if you had a new technology levy to set up, you'd go to this button here. And you would put in all the information that pertained to that levy. So step 8 is where you're going to spend most of your time. This is actually putting your budget in for all of your funds. So if you do the drop down here, it's going to show all of the budgeted funds. Not all of these funds necessarily apply to every school. Obviously, not everybody has adult ed. Not everybody has a non-op. Only non-operational schools will have those, so very few each year use that fund. And not everybody has a flex fund, not everybody has a debt service fund. So whatever funds apply to you, you'll need to come in and set your budget up. So we're going to go to the general fund. And this information here is all the same information that was provided to you on your preliminary budget data sheets in March. And in this particular case, Jefferson High School, if they ran an election levy and it passed, they could pass a budget for $3,019,882.5, and that would mean that on the ballot, $219,372.48 was approved by the voters. And so that's what we're going to adopt here today. And in order to get this to work, you have to put the amount on your ballot first. So you'll go to amount approved on ballot by voters. Then you can go in and put your adopted budget in, and we're going to put it for the full amount. All right, so we've got what our adopted budget will be. how much was approved on the ballot. And then we're going to go to the next tab, the reserves tab. So you have a choice here. So we have a fund balance coming forward from last year. Our cash is $620,000. Now that we've adopted our budget, you can see down at the bottom of the screen, you can hold a 10% reserves in your general fund. That is recommended. A lot of people do it. You don't have to, but the maximum amount of operating reserves you could hold is $301,988.25, which is 10% of your adopted budget. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to fill our reserves up with that maximum amount, because we want some cash flow for the times that we're not receiving taxes, to keep our fund in the black. And if there's an emergency at the end of the year, we would have those reserves that we could do a budget amendment if we absolutely had to and use them.
Steve Hamill said we need to be more lively and like add music in between these delays, so don't be alarmed if I start singing.
Yeah, Steve, you had to know that she was going to call you out at some point in this meeting, because you can't just stay retired
and watch these meetings without doing them.
Okay, so now that we've put our reserves in, we're not going to go into all that. We'll go to our revenues. You'll see that there are revenues already put in for you in each of your funds. And just like I said in the TFS, if they say yes here under calculated, these are the ones that were pre-filled by the OPI. They're also the ones that are on your print me sheet. So go back to the TFS step 1. You should have printed that pre-filled data verification sheet, also known as the print me sheet, when you were doing your TFS, and you want to verify that the numbers on page 2 match up with the entitlements listed on your preliminary budget data sheets that Olivia just explained how to pull. And those numbers should also be the same as the numbers that are pre-filled here. So we had a fund balance of $620,000. We filled our reserves up, and what was remaining out of the $620,000 after filling our reserves up is showing here as the remaining fund balance available. So we will be reappropriating $318,011.75, and that's going to go towards filling up our 25 budget. So that's going to be 318,000 less we have to get from the state or ask our taxpayers for. So money that you reappropriate is helping your taxpayers and sometimes the state too.
One question, is there a reason you wouldn't put full amount in the reserves?
You know, it's a board choice. And so your board could choose one year to reserve a little bit less, because that would reappropriate more and lessen the burden on your taxpayers. So that would be, I guess, a reason that a board may choose to do that. Okay, let's see, make sure I've got all my notes here. So we've got our budget in for the general fund. You can hit your summary button here, and it kind of just gives you an overview. It's like, you know, you started with this much cash, you're going to adopt this budget. You're filling your reserves up. That's 10% of your reserves. It shows you what you're reappropriating. It shows you what you're levying to your taxpayers, and your other revenue are those pre-filled amounts. If you're an oil and gas school, you might be putting in non-levy revenues that would be reflected here. All right, I think we covered that. So once you're done with your general fund, I want to hit on the transportation fund. I'm not going to go through every fund to enter a budget. There's just a few things in the transportation fund I want to make sure everybody sees they don't miss. So in this case, I'm going to adopt a budget of $450,000. I had went and put this in earlier. But then you need to go to, oh, and also I had a fund balance of 130,000 coming in, so I filled up my operating reserves. I always like to do that. Then I'm gonna go to my on schedule, and you don't want to miss putting your on schedule in, because this is gonna be the budget for like your bus routes, your individual transportation contracts. If you don't do this, then you haven't set that piece of your budget up. So we're gonna go put in our on schedule budget. You'll see that when you do that, it subtracts that amount from your over schedule. So 450,000 was our transportation fund budget, but that budget breaks down to your on schedule and over schedule. And once you put that on schedule on, make sure you remember that you're allowed to have a contingency for your on schedule. And this is the piece that gets missed. We've had new clerks not realize that, and then they run short and they don't have those funds if they need them. So just want to make sure everybody remembers this piece. And then again, down below, it'll tell you what the maximum amount is that you're allowed to adopt. Okay. And so now you can see how your budget is being funded. Your on schedule is 50-50 from your county and the state that funds that. And then we are reappropriating 40,000 from our cash that came in from last year. And then we're going to levy our taxpayers $256,000. So if you hit your summary, it just kind of breaks that down again. This was our fund balance. We're going to adopt 450,000, filling our reserves. We're appropriating 40,000. You're going to have your county and state payments for your on schedule. That's your 154,000, and then your district tax levy to fill in the rest of that budget. Okay, looks like so you're going to do that, whoops, for all of your funds. Oh, I'm kind of a hot mess right now. Let's see. And then you would go to your validation button at that point. The budget isn't going to take you as long as your TFS. It just has all the different areas. If you have new levies, if you bought new buses, and all the extra buttons that you go to for that. You guys wouldn't see the setup taxing jurisdiction here. I'm logged in as OPI. That's something we do for you, but you will see set up a bus radio asset, set up building reserve, and set up a technology election. And we kind of hit on those buttons while we were in the other steps. As you can see, this is a familiar screen. So let's go run a validation, because we should have some validations hitting that we can try to clear. Well, I got through that a lot faster than I thought I was going to. So hopefully you guys have lots of questions and test me. It's gonna make me better for next year.
One question while that's loading, would I set up the building reserve if we are running a levy for the first time?
If you ran the levy and it passed prior to setting up your fiscal year 25 budget, then yes, you would need to get your building reserve fund opened. The chart of accounts, and I'll double check that, unless we can pull it up online and look. We'll come back to this validation report. That was a good question that you had. So if you go to the chart of accounts, and I don't want to make you dizzy, I'm going to try not to scroll too fast. Look away if you need to. If you ever need to open up a fund, you can go to the chart of accounts and look, like starting on page 10, it lists all the funds. If over here in the legal authority, it ever says OPI approved, you have to reach out and request permission from OPI to open that fund. In this case, the building reserve does not have to get permission from us, but you would need, regardless, to open any fund. It needs to run through a board meeting, be noticed and run through a board meeting and be pass the voting there to be opened. But
Well, one of my schools is doing a building reserve levy at the one that doesn't need a vote for the first time. And
the
I'm just,
permissive.
yeah,
Oh, I told you I was gonna touch on that and I totally skipped that. So I'm actually gonna go back to that for you. Sorry, Laura. Thanks for bringing that up.
thank you.
Yeah, let's jump back in there. And now I lost Mayfair's.
I think it's your test on the top left corner.
Wow, I really got out of there.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, I try to stay out of this. All right, so let's say we are gonna set up our building reserve permissible levy. Let's go ahead and just do that. So there's really not going to be an election date because this isn't the screen. So you're going to be in your budget screen of your building reserve. And you're going to go to permissive revenues. And this is where you're going to set up that permissive building reserve levy here. And it would be this right here. So now the question is, okay, my board has decided we want to permissively levy in our building reserve. We've noticed the notice in March, so we know we are able to do that. Now what? So the state, it's different for all the schools on like what the match is. And Paul Taylor would be able to probably explain this in depth on what exactly that calculation is. And I can get that to you later if you want to reach out and ask me. You can email me, but you can go to the general fund budget spreadsheet that's on our website. And it's under budgets and budget spreadsheets and guidance. And it's this fiscal year 25 general fund budget spreadsheet. Usually takes a little while to open. It's been opening pretty quickly. And then let's see. 0457 is my LE number. Whoops, where'd you go? So you're going to put your LE number in here. Okay. If you go to this building reserve tab, the red, pinkish red one, and find your school, it's in LE order. So 0457. So here's Jefferson High School. And so the maximum amount of my small box, the maximum amount I can bring in for this is $46,900. And this $16,516.53 is the maximum state share that I can get. So if I levy, each time you put in a levy amount for your school, it's gonna add what the state share would be. If you ever want to know like what you would need to levy in order to get the full state share, you can come over here to, in this case, it's column L because Jefferson is a high school. So if your board was to levy $30,383.47, then you would get the full state share of $16,516.53 if, and this is a risk that you take, there's an appropriation for this. And the risk that you run if you want to try to get the max is if every school took advantage of this and levied the max to get the full state share, there wouldn't be enough in the appropriation to fund all of that. So you take a risk that you may not actually get the full amount of the state share when you do that. And so you could end up with a budget shortfall there. And so you have to be okay with that if it happens. It hasn't happened yet it has been fully funded to my knowledge since it started, but it is a risk that as more and more schools start doing this, that you could have. So just keep that in mind. Make sure your board realizes that. But in this situation, we will go ahead and assume that we want to do the full. And so I'm just going to write this down because I'm going to leave this screen. Actually, I could pull it over here. So I know because I looked at that spreadsheet that I can put in 30,383.47. That's the amount I want to permissively levy. And so you can see that it automatically put in that the state is gonna kick in this amount. If I were to put in a different amount there, like say my board's like, nah, that's a pretty big jump to our taxpayers. We only levied 15,000 last year. We don't want to go any more than 20. You could put in 20. And it's going to reduce that state share because this report here shows that the match is 54 cents. So every dollar that you kick in, the state will kick in 54 cents is what that is saying. And you can see it's different school to school. So that is how you put in that permissive levy when you decide you want to do that. Are there any questions on that? Because that does get a little confusing.
Thank you for going through that.
You're welcome. That answered your question, Laura?
Yeah, at least I kind of have an idea now, and
Okay.
I'll try it out and hopefully.
Well,
Thanks.
you know my number if you need me.
Thank you.
And there's a question, if we got the board to pass it and we want to start a compensation absences, do we then put it on the budget?
So okay, compensated absence is a non-budgeted fund. So it will only budgeted funds are going to be in your budget. You will report on it in your TFS. If we jump over to the TFS here. Fund 21 is your compensated absence fund. You'll have to report on that fund in your TFS each year.
Thank you.
There is guidance on compensated absence fund. Once you've determined what your compensated absence liability is, you're only allowed to have up to 30% of that liability in your compensated absence fund. So that's something you'll have to monitor each year. And if you determine at the end of the year you have more than 30%, you need to move what's over back to your general fund. And if you have less, you can move up to the max to your compensated absence fund. So if you have any questions on that, when you get into that, let me know. Are we ready to run a validation report?
I think we are.
All right, I better get back to the budget because I'm in the TFS. Okay. You can either hit the print validation report on the screens that the button shows up on, or you can do it the long way and go to data entry, budget, validation.
If you do it on the screen, you don't have to type in. Oh, I guess they don't anyways because that's there. Never mind.
I just see all the schools, so it makes it take a little longer. Uh-oh, we got some red stuff here. So this validation report, and hopefully you guys can see this. Is that too small?
No, I can see it on mine.
Okay. So it is split the same way as the TFS validation report. You on the top part, you have your corrective validations. These are your validations that must be resolved and corrected before you can submit. And then you have the bottom part that's warnings and information, and you have your red warnings and your black warnings. They're all important. We want you to, definitely be looking at these red ones. Something's probably not right, but there may be those same things here in the warnings that are black that it's something that you probably should fix. So make sure you read through all of those and make sure you get them corrected. So let's start with this first one here. It says the levy amount has not been entered in the bus depreciation step for the asset Bluebird purchased in fiscal year 24 with a cost to the district of $150,000. A levy must be entered for every asset district owns that is not fully depreciated, even if it is zero. The asset must be marked as sold or disposed of on the bus depreciation, that's a trick word, asset setup page if the district no longer owns it. So if you remember right, I had entered in 2 new buses. It looks like I forgot to put my levy amount in for one of those. So let's go back and take a look at that. So we're going to go to our budget for our transportation fund. And just kidding, bus depreciation fund, see? All right. So we'll just check. Oh, yep. Look here. I put in that I bought this bus in fiscal year 24. I set it up as an asset, but I forgot to levy anything for it. Now, that's a warning because your board does not have to levy for your buses every year. This is an area in your budget that your board can choose to give your taxpayers a break and maybe not levy as much from year to year. So that's why it's just a warning. While I'm here, I'll check this one. Oh, I missed it there too. If you go back to your budget page, because that's $54,000 we're going to levy. And it'll show up here, district tax levy, $54,000. That's because I entered in those levies for my 2 new buses on that screen. Okay, let's reprint our validation report. I do not see those errors anymore. That cleared it. Oh, what's this? So now it's saying the adopted budget for Fund 17 for the current year is 0. The adopted budget was $46,335 last year. So this means more than likely I forgot to go to my adult ed fund and adopt a budget. Well, that could be really bad if we needed to adopt a budget and nobody caught it, because you would not have a budget to work from. And look at that. That's exactly what happened. So we're going to add a new budget record. Let's see. We wanted to adopt a budget of $75,000. And you can hold reserves in your adult ed fund. And so I want to do that. And my max is $26,250, and I am bringing in $50,000, so I can fill my reserves up because I have enough cash there. Okay, so then I'm appropriating the $23,750. I'm levying $51,250 to my taxpayers. So fund balance of $50,000. I'm adopting a budget of $75,000, putting $26,250 into my reserves. The adult ed fund has a 35% limit for operating reserves, and that is newer. I can't remember what year, several years ago, they upped that to 35%, but I'm reappropriating $23,750, and I am levying my taxpayers $51,250. All right, what else was on our validation report? Okay. The operating reserves for Fund 14 are 0. The entire fund balance will be used to lower the levy. Under normal circumstances, 0 reserves are not recommended. Okay. Yep, I had adopted my budget here at 400,000, and I can have maximum operating reserves of 80,000, but I had forgot to do that. And I have plenty of cash coming in. So there, I got my operating reserves in. So had that warning not been there, I may have missed that. And then my board probably would have been mad at me. Okay. All right, well, we got all the ones screaming at us gone. The amount designated as excess reserves in the general fund 0 is less than the amount that could be reserved. The difference of that amount may be added to, okay. So excess reserves are a little different. I'll try to explain these. Paul did a great presentation on reserves at MASBO. So if years prior and this year in your TFS, you had receipted in, let's see, protested taxes, I believe that it is. If you had receipted in protested taxes that came in later, you can also hold that amount as an excess reserve. So you can fill your reserves up, your 10% reserves, but if you have the ability, because you've booked these protested taxes, you can also hold what's called excess reserves. It's just like a little extra reserve. And in this case, it looks like Jefferson had booked $265,230.76 in excess reserves. And so this warning is just telling us, hey, you can do this. And so let's go ahead and put in excess reserves. I wasn't going to go into this today, but
It's the wrong line,
I do
It's
have the
the-
wrong line in.
the second one.
Yep, thank you. That didn't look right when I was trying to enter. And what that's gonna do is I'm gonna reappropriate that much less for my taxpayers. So now I had this 620,000 coming in. I'm gonna fill up my operating reserves. I'm also gonna fill up my excess reserves because I have that ability. And then what's left, this 52,780.99 will be what I'm gonna reappropriate for my taxpayers. And you can see that in the summary here, unreserved fund balance reappropriated. Whoops. So. Are there questions on that? Because I'm sure there might be.
There's a note that it's protested and or delinquent taxes and penalties and interest, just to add those
Yes.
two on there.
Yes, you're right. Off the top of my, I couldn't remember all those revenue codes off the top of my head. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think that was the extra things I was gonna touch on. Is there anything else anybody would like to see, like to talk about? I'm gonna go back to my validation report. I think we might have had one more left on there. Okay, there is one left on here. It is telling me a new asset has been entered and that the bus must meet legal definition of a school bus and meet minimum standards for school buses. Passenger vehicles defined in 20-10-101 and 20-10-129 are not eligible. So that's just informational, making sure you know that if you bought a vehicle, you can't depreciate on that in your bus depreciation fund. So it's just making sure that you're aware of that and you're not trying to. And you can't clear this one. It's just informational. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my video back on and we can take more questions if we need to. I can't see myself, but
So one question. So what I see is you're utilizing all reserve options in your budget.
That's actually a really good question because you do want to fill your reserves if at all possible. It's just good practice because things happen. I mean, for one, you're not going to be getting tax revenue coming in until, November and May. And so all you're going to get are some state payments starting in August. You're going to have to meet payroll. You're going to have expenditures. Those reserves are going to float your cash flow. They're going to get you through those slow times. But also if something comes up, say you're getting towards the end of the year and you have a handful of veteran teachers that all decide they're retiring at the same time. Well, usually your budget's not going to be able to support those payouts. That's just an example of a situation where you might be like, oh my gosh, I know I have my reserves full, and you talk to your board, and if your board chooses, you can go through the process of adopting a budget amendment so you can dip into those reserves, and you have to do the budget amendment and then work with OPI in order to have access to those funds, because the processing that budget amendment gives you the budget authority. If you don't do that part, it's going to appear as a budget overdraft and then there'll be penalties. So if that happens, make sure you go through that budget amendment process. But there are funds that you don't want to necessarily reserve in. So let me give you an example. If you go to your bus depreciation fund, the bus depreciation reserve fund is already a reserve type fund, meaning so each year you can build on your cash that's there. You don't reappropriate anything. It can increase. And if you put a reserve in your bus depreciation reserve fund, which you can certainly do that, and it gives you an amount. All that's doing is if you want to spend that amount that year, you can't unless you do a budget amendment. So it would prevent you from that. It'd probably make more sense just to leave it all out there as your adopted budget, so you have budget authority for the full amount in that case. Same. The tech fund is the same way, the building reserve fund. Those would be funds that you could reserve in, but you may not want to. You don't have to reappropriate those funds at the end of the year, so there's really no need.
One add I will make to excess reserves is you might need to talk to your county about identifying the prior year taxes and
Yes.
protested tax payments. Not all counties split those out for you, so that's just one note I'll add on that.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. If your county's not breaking those out for you, then you're not booking them, and that's taking away your ability to hold excess reserves if you wanted to and could. And they probably, if they're not, they probably just don't even realize that that's happening to you. So good conversation to have with them.
Do you have any other questions?
Yes, anybody? No. Well, it looks like we're gonna be getting done a little bit early today, which is okay. I'd rather have extra time than not enough, so.
We know that this is a super stressful time, but you guys will do great. And just a reminder that we're always here
Yes.
to help you guys out. If we don't have the answer right away, we'll do whatever we can to get that for you. So, no question's a dumb question. Oftentimes we don't know either, so.
Yeah.
Oh, where will these videos be located to rewatch? Great question.
Oh, let me show you that real quick. I think I'm still sharing my screen. Yep.
Yeah.
If you go back to the school finance website and scroll all the way down, there's this webinars. And actually, I will tell you, there is a wealth of knowledge in prior years. So I know Paul Taylor has an amazing one on the preliminary budget data sheets in here that I personally go visit often. As I'm learning this job, I've only been here a year and a half. So, but it will be up in this area. The earlier TFS training will also be here. It looks like we already put something, and then Andrea's slide deck from her presentation yesterday are already here. So that's where you'll find them. Gonna stop sharing my screen. Here everybody is. Thank you all. We appreciate you. This was kind of our first real go around doing these live, and we hope that we can get some feedback from you and make them better for you next year. Take care.
Thank you.
Happy budgeting.